you think you know a lot about disability policy, and then your mind gets blown a little bit in the morning about another area, which is what we were so grateful to learn about. 40, 60, 70% of people with ID losing custody of their babies. You know that is something that needs work immediately. And continuing on, we're thrilled to continue on talking about the intersections that we are exploring, and in doing so, we benefited from hearing last year a panel who spoke about housing and the need for more affordable and different types of housing for people with disabilities. And what has been happening since then, we thought it was very worthwhile for an update because it speaks exactly to what we're talking about now, which is intersectionality, and intersectionality within the housing community as well. So we are very fortunate we're going to be able to get an update and hear more about exactly what is happening by bringing different groups together to address the need for housing. As we learned, it intersects with everything. Even being a parent intersects with everything that we do. Health was talked about yesterday as well. So today we're really lucky to be able to hear from Lindsay Johnson from the Kelsey. She's the Director of Policy and Partnerships. Born and raised in the Bay Area, Lindsay was drawn to public interest work from a young age. Most recently, she worked for Tipping Point Community on their chronic homelessness initiative, where she managed the research project. And previously, she worked with adults and children with cognitive and physical disabilities at Higher Ground, a nonprofit that gives individuals with disabilities the opportunity to experience recreation in the outdoors. She graduated with degrees in political science and history from Yale University, where she served as president of the Yale chapter for Best Buddies International. And while I get her presentation up, will you please welcome Lindsay.
I don't have as many videos of cute babies, so I apologize in advance, but I will do my best to be half as entertaining. As Jordan said, first of all, thank you so much for having us. We're so excited to share what we've been working on and to learn from you all in this room. My name is Lindsay. I'm the Director of Policy and Partnerships at the Kelsey. Some of you may have seen our founder and CEO, Michaela Connery, present last year. And our slides up. So just kind of diving right in, the Kelsey as an organization has been around formally for about a year and a half now, but really is the culmination of lifelong work and passion of Michaela. Michaela had a cousin named Kelsey with multiple significant disabilities, and Michaela and Kelsey grew up together. They were the same age, and as Michaela herself, around 18, 19, started to become interested in moving out of the family home and living independently, she saw that Kelsey wanted those same things, but she also saw the struggle that Kelsey and her family went through trying to find accessible, affordable, and inclusive housing options in the community. So she headed off to Harvard Kennedy School, like all of us do when we have a good idea, and did about 3 or 4 years of research out in the field on inclusive communities, and then incubated the Kelsey's model at the Harvard Social Innovation and Change Lab. So our mission, perfect timing, let's see.
It will.
Okay.
Sure.
So our mission is kind of twofold at the Kelsey. On one hand, and there's a nifty slide that shows this in a diagram, but it's to build communities and change systems. So on one hand, we are literally developing affordable, accessible, and inclusive communities. We have our first site for development in downtown San Jose that is mixed ability, mixed income. It'll be 111 units total, a mix of studios and 2 bedrooms with 28 units set aside for individuals with disabilities of all income levels. And then on the other hand, we are working to change systems. So we're working with groups like the ARC, with many other fantastic organizations, some familiar faces in the room, to work on the legislative and economic changes that need to take place to facilitate more inclusive development, not only in the Bay Area, but around the state. So we're here today, while we get this going, to talk about the intersection of disability and housing, and really where we see this is on real estate development and getting units online, and then housing advocacy and funding sources. So where we kind of explored these ideas, and what I'm excited to talk to you all about today, is an organizing effort called Together We Can Do More. And what this project was is we actually received $250,000 from the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative to conduct an 8 to 9 month pre-development and organizing process that would examine how we can design and enable inclusive communities in the Bay Area. And we were really excited about this opportunity to work with the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative because not only were we one of their earliest housing investments in the Bay Area, but we were actually their first and only disability investment. And for us, we talked so much about how disability for so long, particularly in the housing world, has existed as a silo. I can't tell you how many affordable houses that we meet with who say we never thought about IBD as a housing vulnerable population. We've been doing this, for 50 years. So really, the opportunity to have basic education and basic awareness with large funders in the Bay Area, like the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, who are getting a lot of press and attention already, and then being able to kind of be associated with them and have them versed with some of the issues in our community, is a really exciting opportunity, and quite honestly encouraged us to step it up a little bit and really work as hard as we can on the strength of that partnership. So with Together We Can Do More, the thinking was that we didn't want to reinvent the wheel entirely, because we knew that smart, passionate people were having quality conversations about disability inclusive housing. And we wanted to think about, how could we bring all these folks together? So we knew that people were having good conversations, that parents were talking to other parents, affordable housers were talking to other affordable housers, developers to other developers. How could we kind of get the best and brightest from each of these diverse sectors and get them all into the same room talking about new solutions? I think a really important part of our work was recognizing, that due to the inherent diversity within disability, we recognized early on that we weren't going to have everyone sitting in our room, holding hands, agreeing on the perfect model or the perfect solution, but we wanted to stop using this idea of, because we all can't agree on the one perfect thing, we can't do anything. No, we wanted to emerge from this process with tangible, actionable, diverse solutions. So we had 4 goals. Maybe it will be up, maybe it will not be up. I at least read off them. No, you're good. I actually need to be able to read off of them. But so we built 3 teams, one in San Francisco, one in the East Bay, and one in Silicon Valley. And these teams are comprised of everything from architects, market rate developers, affordable housers, parents, siblings, self-advocates, city and county government officials, disability organizations, policy aides, and oh, you're okay. And brought these teams together. They range from size about 12 to 24, and we had 4 goals for this process. Which let me just bring this up real quick, maybe. Oh. So we started this process. We kicked it off with a series of kickoff events around the Bay Area that were designed to be super informal. Come grab a beer, come grab a snack, bring your friends, bring your family, anyone who might be interested. And that was actually how we met a lot of people. I think it's really easy when you begin an organizing process to say, oh, we know these people, we met them at a conference, of course they'll be involved, of course they'll be involved. We actually cast thank you, a very wide net, and that's how we got such great, diverse, passionate people. So our 4 goals of the process were, 1, as I kind of mentioned earlier, to really build awareness. Again, so much of, when we meet with market rate developers, so many developers just they don't, unless they have a family or friend with IDD, they have no idea. So we've met with developers who say, I don't really want to do disability housing, I don't want to pay for the extra services, I'm not paying for the extra ramps. And we just kind of say, okay, actually, let me tell you about the regional centers, and let me tell you about what you already have to do under the ADA, and now see how easy it is. And then we have developers go, okay, yeah, we can do this, let's talk. So there's so much just basic information missing that we really need to start with that basic education piece. We also wanted to bring these diverse stakeholders together to solicit input on what challenges and barriers people have, what's already been attempted, what hasn't been attempted, who's tried what, who's positioned to best try what. And then I think something that we really focus on in our process was, Michaela and I have both worked in disability services for the majority of our lives, and we talked about within our sector, we all get together for these meetings and everyone shares their story, and we sit there and we all just are kind of like, it's sad, it's hard, we look around the room, and then we leave and we go on with our day. And we're not really, how can we channel that energy and those stories and translate that into action. So really what we tried to do with this workshop process was get tangible commitments from our team members, and that results, that requires a lot of follow-up, that requires staying on people a bit, and that was really important to this work. And then our final goal was to have at least one inclusive housing project ready to move forward in site acquisition development by 2019, and we actually were shockingly ahead of schedule on that and had site control in October 2018, and are currently, as I mentioned before, developing our first site in San Jose. So our process overview of the workshop, as I mentioned, we started with the kickoff events. Everyone got to know each other, we got to bring people into the fold, and then we kind of set up these 3 workshops. The first we titled Scoping the Problem, and the goal of this workshop was, again, we hear when we talk about disability housing, everyone's refrain is, we need more housing, we need more housing, we need more money, we need more money. Yes, we know both of these things, but if we actually get into the weeds, why do we need more housing? What has been tried? What hasn't been tried? Why do we need more money? Where can we get money that we haven't thought to get money before? Why is the state so reluctant to create a new funding stream? So really getting into the nitty-gritty in order to take helpful, constructive action. Our next workshop, bearing in mind the 3-pronged problem statement that emerged from the first workshop, we brought in folks from outside of the disability community. So we had a variety of banks present, we had a variety of large foundations, we had Obama's former head of communications, just all of these people who, quite frankly, when we asked them to come participate in the workshop, said, oh, I don't know disability, I don't do disability, I can't be helpful, I'm not sure I'll be helpful. And that was exactly our point. We said, great, what can you bring from your unique background that can encourage our team members to really think creatively and think out of the box for new solutions and opportunities that can be leveraged. Finally, for our third workshop, we worked with a professor from Stanford's design school. And this workshop was actually really about values. So much when we talk about housing, the conversation revolves around the services and the physical housing and accessibility, which of course is very important. But also, what values do we want in an inclusive community? What type of neighbors do people want? What type of amenities do people want? Really speaking to, as I'll get into in a minute, that third element of inclusive living we believe is, the housing, the supports and services, and then community life. And then, of course, throughout this whole workshop process, the one-on-one meetings, the interviews offline, because we wanted to make sure to, one, capture the energy. If someone had a great idea, we didn't want to say, right, bring it to the next workshop. No, we are going out in the community and kind of meeting with people on a day-to-day basis. So you can see here on this map the wide variety of folks involved with the process. By the end of this 9-month process, we had engaged about 300 folks in the Bay Area, and you can see, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but we attempted to show, the bolded lines are where connections exist, and then kind of the dotted lines are where we noticed weak connections or where there needed to be stronger connections to move this work forward. And then kind of what really is, in terms of, I keep mentioning these tangible, actionable outcomes, and what emerged at the end of this process was that our stakeholders came up with 8 interventions for inclusive community. And I think what's important to note that we emphasized at the start in our workshop is that, we didn't do this process for us at the Kelsey. We did this process so that all these different folks could come together, talk about inclusion, talk about new funding sources, and then get energized and bring it back to their own work. They didn't need to work with us specifically. So when we talk about these interventions, yes, we at the Kelsey are working on some of these. We are piloting a housing development. We are working on developing a new public funding source. But these are just great ideas for anyone who has the capacity, the interest to get to work. So some of these we are working on with our partners, but some of these we're just happy to put out in the space and say, hey, these are what people in our world are talking about and what they want. So I mentioned earlier kind of this framework for inclusive community living. And I think this is just helpful in terms of thinking about organizing and different stakeholders. So we like to talk about this triangle as showing why inclusion is important, in that, as I said, when we talk about the physical housing, we talk about the support and services, but what do we do it for? What's the point? The point is that so people with and without disabilities have thriving community lives, where they live. It's not just, we talk to people who are in, it looks great in a brochure and they live in these beautiful buildings, but they're lonely. They don't know anyone in their building. Maybe no one else in their building has disability, or everyone has a disability. They're missing inclusive daily life, and that's what our work is all about. getting the housing in place, getting the services in place, so that people with disabilities can have relationships. They can go, to places of worship. They have community connections. They know their neighbors. They know where to get coffee. And I think looking at this map and relating it back to the stakeholder, when we talk about what we do at the Kelsey, we have a pretty good grip here, on the housing. We are out there talking to developers. We have, our financial model really gets into the weeds on in terms of, a blended capital source and doing all that. But we recognize, we've been around a year and a half, and we only have so much capacity, that our team members and our partners in this work, they're really going to be our guide on the supports and services. The cities that we're working with, they're going to be our guides on community life and telling us about city programs and community offering and things like that. So I think a big takeaway from this work is really that we titled it Together We Do More, and as corny as that sounds, it's true. We can get a lot more done when we take the time to learn what everyone is up to and then learn who in fact is best positioned to take on specific initiatives. So I will be eager to chat with you. I want to be respectful of the break time, but we will, if you'd like to visit our website, www.thekelsey.org, in the next week or so, we will be releasing about a 100-page super comprehensive report that details not only kind of serves as a primer on inclusive housing in the United States and some of the history, but also highlights some successful models and funding strategies and whatnot, and then really does a deep dive into our Together We Can Do More organizing process. The idea being that anyone reading our report could recreate this organizing process in their own community. And along with that report, we are also releasing an inclusive film that we worked with a filmmaker with disabilities to produce as a toolkit to go along with the report, so you can kind of see us talking about what we're doing. So thank you so much for your time, and have a great break, and I'll be around for a chat.
Leave it to some. All right. Thanks. See you soon.